The World Cup, the Challenge Cup, and the start of a brand new League One season. We've got it all covered with a bunch of interviews with famous folk thrown in too. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bears Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bears Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com, we're at covbearspodcast on Twitter, we're sponsored by York's Tim, and you can subscribe to our show on Apple and Google Podcasts, on Spotify, and on YouTube too. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always is my co-pilot and former Bears fullback, Craig Cathcart. Craig, with 1 being not at all and 10 being absolutely loads, how excited are you that the Bears properly get their season underway this weekend?
Well, after last night, being at the Challenge Cup draw, it has really whetted my appetite. I'm absolutely massively excited for the season ahead. But like every year, apprehensive, not quite sure what's going to happen. But this year, a lot of confidence going into the season. So yeah, colour me excited.
And as a score out of 10, as I actually asked you for, come on.
Let's call it a 9.9.
9.9, cool. For me, at the time of recording, I'm easily a 10 and have no doubt I'll be a 13 by the weekend. And in fact, I might even reach those giddy heights by the end of this episode because quite frankly, it is jam-packed full of goodies. So on Monday night, Craig and I were at the draw for the third round of the Coral Challenge Cup in Coventry, and we've got a bunch of interviews from it to bring you, including the RFL Chief Executive Ralf Rimmer, 2 legendary Coventry athletes, and a load of Bears folk too. Not only that, we've got Bears head coach Tom Tsang's reaction to last weekend's friendly defeat away to the North Wales Crusaders and his thoughts ahead of the new season kick-off this Sunday. And to play us out, we're joined once again by our friend and BBC Rugby League correspondent Dave Woods, who offers his words of encouragement for the Bears ahead of the new season. But before we get stuck into that, there's another story we've not had a chance to talk about on the podcast yet, and that is the news that Coventry's Ricoh Arena was chosen as one of the venues for the 2021 Rugby League World Cup. So that stadium in Coventry will host one of the men's games, and apart from Arsenal Stadium, it's the only ground outside of the north of England chosen as a host city. Now, Craig, we saw with the Olympics, Coventry has built a reputation for doing big sporting events brilliantly. This is really exciting news, isn't it?
This is massively exciting. To find out this far ahead of it as well. Coventry is the European City of Sport this year. It just adds into the general excitement and the real feel-good factor in terms of sport in the city, and rugby league is definitely a growth area. And just purely from a selfish point of view, it's going to be amazing to watch World Cup Rugby League in Coventry. And it's going to benefit the local economy. It's going to benefit local people who are generally into sport, but also it's going to benefit the Bears. Everything like this, really benefits the club going forward, and it leaves lots of massive things to build on. I just can't wait for it. Massively exciting.
Likewise here, and obviously we will be getting increasingly excited about the World Cup over the next 2 years, as we hope you all will too. Now, something else to get excited about that ties Coventry to Rugby League took place on Monday night. We've already alluded to it. It was the draw for the third round of the Coral Challenge Cup, which was made at St Mary's Guildhall in the city, live on the BBC website. So Craig and I were there, and what you're about to hear is a compilation of our evening. So coming up, we're joined by the 2 legendary Coventry athletes who made the draw, Paralympian Kare Adenegan and former 5,000 metre world record holder Dave Moorcroft, and we'll get reactions to the Bears being drawn away to Doncaster from head coach Tom Tsang, club captain Chris Barratt, new Australian halfback Nick Newman and Bears CEO Alan Robinson. We'll also relive the moment ball number 1 was picked out, but before all that, to kick off, we caught up joining us again on the podcast for a second time, the RFL's Chief Executive Ralf Rimmer, who had plenty of positive things to say about Coventry and the Bears.
So Ralf, welcome to Coventry. It's lovely that the draw's taking place in our fair city. How important is it to get this out on the road and come to places like the Midlands?
I think that's what the Cup's all about. It's all the different threads that eventually lead to Wembley, and you come to a fantastic city like this with the sort of facilities that surround us. It just, it adds to the kind of historic backdrop that there is to this Cup. We've been playing for this Cup for an awful long time now, and backdrops like this really do it justice.
Now, you actually joined our podcast of early in last season when the Bears were away at Bradford. Obviously, there's been a real shift in performance on the pitch since then and development of the club. What do you think of when you look at the Coventry Bears now? Are they a club moving in the right direction, do you think?
Oh, very much so. I'm pretty excited about the Bears, although there is another 10 teams in this competition that are fairly excited about themselves as well. So I think the Bears have got a good story to tell, off-field and on-field, to be honest, to go forward every year. And I think 2019 could be a very interesting season for them.
And just lastly, obviously the World Cup in 2021, Coventry gets to host a game there. One of only 2 stadiums outside of the north of England to host a game as well. Again, how excited are you about bringing that international tournament to the Midlands and exposing a traditional rugby union loving public to the different form of the game?
Hugely excited. I think Coventry should be very proud of themselves to come through that kind of competitive tender and be one of the 2 locations outside of the north. That was a very tough contest indeed. I think the people of Coventry and the Bears and everybody that surrounded them, proved themselves to that panel that they were worthy of a World Cup event, and I can only see it strengthening the Coventry Bears and all the interest in the game around the city.
Great. Well, Ralf, thank you again for joining us on the podcast, and best of luck for the season.
Thanks very much.
We have an impeccably behaved audience here tonight of about 100 people, most of them Coventry Bears fans, but they're going to let you know they're here. Right, so we're looking at the number 1. As we know, David's going to be drawing the home teams, and Kare's drawing the away teams. If you'd like to shake that bag, David, this is the big moment. Number 4. Number 4 is Doncaster. No, it's Doncaster, one of the strong League One sides. Number 1. Number 1, the Coventry Bears. They're asking for a redraw. We can't redraw. It'll be a tough trip to Doncaster.
So, Tom, quite a tough draw, Doncaster away. But, looking at the positivities coming out of pre-season, every chance of progressing.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to face a tough team at some point, aren't you, in the Cup? So why not do it now? We would have liked a home draw, and then whoever we got would have been fine. But we'll go up to Doncaster full of confidence. And like I said previously, hopefully we can start the league this weekend strongly, get some confidence, get some momentum, so that when we come to play that game, we're hitting our straps and firing all cylinders.
And well done on your interview on the TV. You made your BBC debut, is it? Must have been nervous beforehand, but you did really well.
Well, I didn't realise that was actually happening until they called my name out, so I didn't really get a chance to be nervous. But I'll watch it back. Apparently, I did a blue steel down the camera, so I'll have to check that.
And it's another positive event for Coventry, another positive event for the Bears to have the draw here. And, long may things like this continue.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have thought that this would have happened in Coventry a couple of years ago. So the fact it's happening now is great. And hopefully the powers that be and the rugby league community can see that we're making big strides, developing the sport in the right way, and embraces.
Thanks very much, Tom. Cheers, and good luck in the next round.
Cheers, mate.
So I'm with Bears captain Chris Barratt. Chris, quite a tough draw this year away in Doncaster.
Yeah, it's not something I'm that fussed about, to be fair. I would have liked a home draw, but it's Doncaster. You're going to play him at some point anyway. So
yeah.
It's not really a shock.
And great to have the draw down here in Coventry this time in a great venue. A real plus for the city to get it down here, and hopefully the Bears will get through and get a home tie in the next round.
Yeah, I think having the draw here is showing that people are actually noticing like Coventry Bears for once. It's like progression from years before, and if we can get through, getting a home draw against another good team would be another bonus for the season.
And you're looking forward to the season ahead now?
Yeah, I think pre-season's gone well. 2 friendlies that came out probably better than most people were expecting. And I think we're hitting the ground running going into West Wales next week.
All the best, Chris. Really looking forward to next week.
Cheers.
So Nick, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Your first time on the show. How are you feeling settled at the club and in the Midlands?
Yeah, great, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been a surreal first month here in Coventry. Starting to adapt to the cold, believe it or not, but it's only getting it warmer, and now footy's starting this Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it.
And tell me a bit about the Challenge Cup. We obviously just watched the draw for the third round. How much do you know about the Challenge Cup? How exciting is it? Did it play much of a part in your decision to come over and play in England at all?
The Challenge Cup, it's new to me. We don't have anything like this in Australia. It's definitely a good concept with all the amateur teams, League One, Championship, and obviously Super League coming into it later, but something I'm looking forward to participating in. Got another League One team in Doncaster, and I think that's a good start for us, and if we really want to have a crack at being competitive, why not just play another League One team? So it'll be good.
And just lastly, how excited are you to finally get the season started this weekend?
Yeah, I'm over the moon that it's come around so fast. Actually, it's going to be a good year for the Bears, and we've worked on some combinations over the last couple of months and had a good pre-season. So really looking forward to it.
Well, thanks, and hopefully you'll be back on the show soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So, Alan, a tough away draw at Doncaster, but confident that the Bears will progress.
It's a tough draw, Doncaster. Really top side, top venue. But we it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the season. We know what's ahead of us now, and it's something we'll work towards and build up to. And we can't do anything more than that.
And wonderful to have this event here today in Coventry, Challenge Cup draw live on the BBC. And it was a really special occasion, wasn't it? Really, really special. What a beautiful venue this is. Medieval venue, steeped in history. Just like the cup. It's been a really special night. There's been some fantastic guests here. We've had the City Council. We've had some local famous sports people here that have had some really passionate and fantastic things to say about rugby league. We've got some exciting times ahead. Yeah, it's another milestone in the Bears' development, getting events like this and then looking ahead to the Rugby League World Cup in 2021 as well. Yeah, we've got 2 years now to build up towards that, and I think this is the beginning of it. I think we're going to set some milestones now over the next 2 years, and we want to fill that venue, in the autumn of 2021. So it's going to be, it's got a lot of exciting times ahead, and we can't wait for it. Lots of things to look forward to then. I can't wait for Sunday and the start of the season, and the Bears will be going into that quite confident, I would have thought. Yeah, after last weekend up at Crusaders, I was really excited about what I saw on the field. I think we're going into Sunday sort of really, really high on confidence. And, I'll be really surprised if we don't come away with a really, really strong performance and a really, really good result to start the season. Thanks, Sal. Cheers for that. I'm really looking forward to the start of the season, and I'll see you at the first game against West Wales. Thanks, mate. No probs.
So, Dave, welcome to the podcast. Rugby league's not necessarily a sport people in Coventry might know you for. So what's your association with the game?
It's kind of fairly tenuous, but I think probably one of my great rugby league claims to fame is that I went to Woodlands Comprehensive School with a guy called John Gray, who is about 5 years older than me, but was a legend as a sports person, phenomenally gifted in every sport, probably the best all-round sportsman I've ever met. He took up rugby union at a late age, ended up playing for Coventry and for England. He then went to rugby league, played for England, played for GB, and became a bit of a hero in Sydney in Australia, played for Wigan. And then obviously I remember as a kid, you wouldn't remember this, but the old days watching rugby league on telly with Eddie Waring and others. So I've always kind of liked rugby league. I like rugby, I like sport.
And have you had much chance to see the Bears over the last few years as they've gone up through the League One ladder?
I watched one game last year which was a victory towards the end of the season, and they're doing really well. I was really impressed with the physicality, obviously, but the athleticism, and it's kind of nice down at the Butts Arena. Coventry is a rugby city, obviously primarily rugby union, but love rugby and the skills. And it was great to watch, and to be in the third round of the cup. But obviously, if they could make it through to the next round when the big guys come in, that would be a real bonus.
And as a Coventrian, how proud does it make you that in this year of Coventry being European City of Sport, we get to do things like host the draw for the Challenge Cup and celebrate the news that the Rugby League World Cup's going to be coming to the city in the next couple of years as well?
I think both of those things are great achievements for the city. It is a special year for us, 2019 European City of Sport, and I think it's great that the RFL have chosen to come out of the north and do the draw in the Midlands in Coventry. We're then looking forward to the Rugby League World Cup in 2021, the year that we're the UK City of Culture. And depending on what team we get, I'm sure there'll be a wonderful kind of connection culturally with that nation or those nations. And Coventry is really good at putting on big events. Back in 2012, we hosted Olympic football at the Rico. So it's all about raising the level of aspiration and raising the profile of Coventry and saying that we are a sporting city, we love our sport, and we love big events.
And just lastly, are we likely to see you down the Butts watching some more rugby league this season? Season starts on Sunday after all.
I absolutely will do. Yeah, my son loves sport and my grandson loves as well. So we'll be there. The weekends tend to be a bit full with athletics, and I'm very heavily involved in park run and other things. But getting to watch live sport in Coventry is a real privilege, and I love it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and fingers crossed we make this cup run last as long as it can.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. Yep.
So, Kare, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you involved in the draw and all of this. What's your relationship to rugby league? Is this draw your first encounter of the sport? Have you watched it at all? What do you make of it as a sport?
To be honest, it is my first encounter with rugby league. I have heard about Coventry Bears before, so it's quite exciting to actually get involved with the rugby league, and I was really happy that I drew out number 1 for the Coventry Bears as well, so yeah, I was quite proud of that.
How did you judge the reaction of who you drew the number 1 away to, though? It was quite a tough tie. Did you feel any pressure going into it?
A bit, yeah. I wasn't quite sure what the reaction was going to be. I was just, like I said, I was so happy I picked it out, and then I heard that maybe a bit unsure about the result, but yeah, it seems quite exciting, and I'm rooting you guys on, so yeah.
Now, looking at your CV, I mean, you're so early on in your career, and you've won Paralympic medals, World Championships, like absolutely amazing achievements. Like, what would you pass on to the Bears in terms of the success you've had in your career so far, and the motivation you've had to put on yourself, and the determination to train and just I guess constantly improve? If you could give a team talk to the Bears when they go up to Doncaster to play that game in which you've drawn them in, what would you say to them, drawing on your own experiences to inspire them to victory?
Maybe just to really go for it. So in my racing a lot, I was constantly, maybe coming second or third, or maybe being a bit unsure about myself and what I'm capable of. But actually last season I really just pushed a bit harder and thought, I deserve to win, and just have that kind of winning mentality. So. Yeah.
And you're an ambassador for Coventry being European City of Sport this year. And I know Dave Woods asked you a very similar question just now at the Q&A, but you must be incredibly proud to be a Coventrian and be involved in this exciting year of sport and see things like this happening on your doorstep.
Yeah, I am extremely proud, and this is such a huge event, so it is so good that it's here at St Mary's Guildhall, and to be in Coventry, in the centre of Coventry. So I am so proud, and also the fact that we really celebrate different types of sports, and it's just great to have that kind of support for local sports.
Two quick questions before I let you go. First of all, what's on your agenda for this year? What, in terms of competitions wise, are there big things that people of Coventry should be looking out for and supporting you in?
Yeah, well, I've got the World Championships in Dubai in November, so that is really the big one, and obviously it's about just being strong and making sure that I'm in good shape going on to Tokyo in 2020.
Actually, I lied. I've got two more questions now. I guess the follow-on question from that, in terms of your plans for this year, any chance we might see you at a Bears game this year?
I'd like to. I mean, yeah, if you invite me, I'll come along, I'll cheer, definitely.
I'll invite you on behalf of the club. And lastly, this is my last one. Have you ever watched any wheelchair rugby league? And if so, would you be tempted to give that a go? Maybe once your athletics career is done.
I haven't. I mean, I've seen bits online with wheelchair rugby. Maybe I'd like to have a go. I don't mind trying different things, and it's such an amazing sport. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Best of luck for the World Championships later in the year, and hopefully see you at the Butts sometime soon.
Thank you.
So there we go, a fantastic evening on Monday, and a trip to Doncaster for the Bears is their reward. Craig, possibly not the kindest draw for the Bears, but it was a great occasion on Monday night nonetheless, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Just to have events like this in Coventry is massive for the Bears. It's massive for the sport of rugby league in the city, and massive just generally for sport to have things like this. Great to see Dave Woods there, and Ralph himself coming along as well. And, there was interviews afterwards. The Coventry City Council, had a lot of great things to say about the Bears and the work that they do in the community, and also positive things to say about what the Bears bring to the city as a sporting club. And, it's really very positive, a lot of backing locally for the Bears. But also really kind things said by all the guests on the panel. They all said wonderful things about the Bears. Ralf Rimmer himself as well, really praised the Bears and everything that they're doing and how the Bears are building year on year. And it's all really promising. To think all those years ago when the Bears first started out that something like this would be coming to Coventry. A live draw on the BBC is fantastic, and not the kindest draw. Doncaster will be tough, but not an insurmountable obstacle. Certainly, the Bears will, if they can get off to a good start in the league, will be confident going into that game. Could have been a lot worse. A home draw would have been obviously ideal, but we'll take it and we'll give it a good go, I'm sure.
That tie against Doncaster will take place on the weekend of the 9th, 10th of March. We will naturally keep you posted about that on this podcast. Right, time to shift our attention to the impending arrival of the new League One season, which the Bears kick off this Sunday at home to the West Wales Raiders at 3 p.m. at the Butts Park Arena. So as a final preparation for that game, they travelled to Wrexham last weekend for a hit-out against the North Wales Crusaders, and the Bears put up a great showing, but ultimately were just edged out 24-16. However, there were plenty of positives to take from it for Bears head coach Tom Tsang, who reflected on the game with Craig.
So I've got Tom here. Just want a quick chat, Tom, about the game on Saturday. Quite a close run thing against North Wales, and lots of positives to take out of that, I would assume.
Yeah, really, really positive. Obviously, it's our final pre-season game, so we want to make sure that we put a good account of ourselves together and put in a good performance. But we also changed things around a little bit. Some of those changes were forced because we had a few lads away with the England Universities trials. So we had a couple of guys playing out of position, and some of the guys that haven't played at this level before making their debut. So it's good to get a look at them. And I must admit, Crusaders started a lot stronger than us. The first 10 or 15 minutes, they really came out firing and were good value to be up after 10 minutes. But from that point on, for probably the next hour of play, it was at least even or we were on top. So that was really positive, and they probably finished stronger the last 10 minutes or so. But I think we can put that down to some of the changes that were made in the last 15, 20 minutes. Just disrupted things a little bit from our point of view, but was still valuable because it meant that we got some game time into some of the guys that might not have done otherwise. The combinations are starting to come along now. We've got new players in the hooker position. Both halfbacks are new and the fullbacks are new, so there's always going to be a bit of time to adjust and for those guys to settle in with the new teammates. But we're really, really where we want to be at this point.
Yeah, sounds really, really positive. Any standout performers from the weekend?
Yeah, some of the guys that we were on the debut for it. So Ewan Tiernan, who's I think he's probably played less than 10 games of rugby league in his career. He came on in the front row after about 20 minutes, and his energy and his tempo and his enthusiasm was a real highlight. And he actually paved the way in that respect for a lot of our more experienced guys. Just the way he wants to run onto the ball and rip into the defence is something that should be replicated by our other players, really. So he was really good. I thought Nathan Conroy at 9 showed again why he's a class act, and both our second rows were really strong. Chris Barratt in particular was great for the full game, and then we had Will Tully, one of our young lads, 19-year-old from Leicester, who started at loose forward, moved into the left second row, played the full game, showed that he's got a real good engine on him, but he's got some good touches as well. But the best thing is we're putting out some good stuff right now, which is obviously fantastic, but we're nowhere near our potential. We've got so much work to do, so much growing to do, and developing as a team. So to be where we are now, but with that potential in front of us, is really, really positive.
Brilliant, and it all sounds positive heading into the first game of the season against West Wales this Sunday. So are the lads all fired up and ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a lot said about West Wales over the last 18 months from the season last year, which wasn't great for them, and obviously the changes they've made this year, the investment they've made, bringing in new players, new coaches, but because of all those things, they're a complete unknown quantity. You don't know what they're going to be. So due to that, we're not going to really focus on them at all. This first game, it's all about us making sure that we put our best performance out in the first game of the season, and making sure that we lay a marker down for ourselves and for the league.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I can't believe the season has come around again and is ready to start, and I look forward to interviewing you with lots of wins over the season.
Cheers, Craig. I hope so too.
Craig, Tom is positive about the start of the new season on Sunday. I'm excited, and a home game against West Wales is, on paper at least, a kind start for the Bears. What are your thoughts ahead of Sunday?
You know what? It's really hard to tell what West Wales team are going to turn up. They are this season a bit of an unknown quantity. They've got a new, experienced head coach. They've signed a number of players. I think they've signed pretty much a new squad and retained a few players from last year. So, they'll certainly be more competitive than last year. They'll be looking, for them, it's a massive game, and one that they'll be targeting as a potential win and to get off the mark. The Bears will be confident going into it. As I said, it's really hard to tell how it's going to pan out. I'm confident the Bears are going to get the result, and they're going to put on a decent show. But who knows what West Wales team are going to turn up? They'll be looking certainly this year to try and improve and move off the bottom of the table and get a few wins on the board. So, who knows? It's certainly going to be interesting. Be a completely different team than came down to the Butts Park Arena last summer.
And there will be more than likely be a few familiar faces in the West Wales lineup too, as they've signed a couple of guys who played for the Bears last year in the off-season, so do keep an eye out for them. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing a few of the new Bears players, though. I don't know about you, Craig, but we got a taste of some of them against Leeds back in January. But, players like Nathan Conroy, Nick Newman, who we heard from earlier, and Will Tully, who has been ripping up trees in pre-season. Really excited to see how they fare on Sunday. Is there anyone you're particularly excited about seeing this weekend?
I think the three that you mentioned, certainly. Also Callum Merritt as well. I think he's looked brilliant in pre-season. Mitch Shaw as well, another Australian in the lineup. He looks very, very exciting. There looks to be lots of pace all across the park for the Bears. But equally, I'm just excited to see the development of the players that really showed their ability over the second half of the season last year. And, it's a really exciting, it's been an exciting pre-season, and, very much looking forward to seeing how things go. But I think you mentioned the ex-Bears players playing for West Wales. That'll be interesting to see as well, how the matchups go there. I'm sure there'll be, there'll be a few guys looking to prove themselves. It's going to be an interesting game, I'm sure.
So, what do you reckon? Should we put our necks on the line and make a prediction for Sunday's game?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, I reckon Bears win by 10 points.
I'm going to be a bit more optimistic than that. I would think a Bears win by 20.
Okay, I was being conservative. I'm much more in favour of your prediction. And how about the Bears as a whole in 2019 then, Craig? I mean, talking to various people on Monday night, and there is a consensus that League One is quite open this year. The Bears have improved from last year. We've seen that in the off-season, and it feels like there's a real chance for the Bears to potentially get their best ever finish in League One. You know, top 6 feels like an achievable target this year, and that would be an incredible step for the club, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think while League One is more open, I think, the big guns from last year are gone. And for the last 3 seasons, there's always been 1 or 2 very big clubs at the top of the table who've spent big as well. Newcastle has spent a lot of money this year, but it is more open. But equally, that means there's going to be a lot of games that could go either way. So it's probably likely to be a lot more close games, and it'll be all about nicking the wins when you get the opportunities. So I mean, I've said all along, based on the signings the Bears have made, based on how they've all looked in pre-season, based on the early start in pre-season and the fitness and everything else that the lads have got. I think a top 6 is very reasonable. It would be amazing to get a top 6 finish. I'm optimistic that is a viable target. They may fall short of that. Who knows? But I think we're in for a good ride this year, definitely. I think there's going to be some real positives.
Yes, absolutely. Very much looking forward to it all. So don't forget, the Bears season opener against the West Wales Raiders is this Sunday at 3 p.m. at the Butts Park Arena. Do come along and make some noise for the Bears. Get your season ticket if you haven't already, and make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you can catch all the reaction next week. You'll find all the links you need to subscribe at covbearspodcast.com, and don't forget we're sponsored by York's Tim, for which we're very grateful. That's just about it from us for this episode, but we do have one more interview from Monday night to play us out this week. We're delighted to welcome back to the podcast the BBC's Rugby League correspondent Dave Woods for a chat about Coventry and to hear his words of encouragement for the Bears players this weekend. So Craig, thanks as always to you, and I will see you on Sunday.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, we'll see you on Sunday, yeah.
And now, to play us out, here's the BBC's Dave Woods. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll be back next week. Dave, back in Coventry, back on the Bears Necessities podcast. Welcome back. How is it coming back to Coventry for something different this time, a draw instead of a match?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it just adds to this kind of feel-good factor about rugby league in this city, doesn't it? You know, we had the great news a couple of weeks ago now. The World Cup is going to be here in 2021 at Ricoh Arena, which is brilliant. You know, looking forward to seeing how the Bears fare in this coming year. You know, after the end to last year, it's just a feel-good place for rugby league at Coventry.
And obviously, the Bears sort of got their name on the map a bit more last season and did show progress over the course of the year. Do you get a sense that journey is continuing this year from where you are, based obviously a bit away from the Midlands?
Yeah, I think, you look at social media, and there's quite a few people on social media who are based up in the north, who are, backing the Bears, so to speak. And I think people recognise generally that we need this level of expansion. It's not ridiculous. We're going to be in Super League in 2 years. It's proper common sense. Let's build from the bottom. Let's develop local talent. And as we've spoken about it before, haven't we? That the talent pool generally is diminishing. One, because not as many kids are playing. Kids in Wigan, Hull, Cass, always used to have a rugby ball in their hand. Maybe not as many of them do now. So that talent pool is diminishing, that the game has relied on for the last 120 years. So we need places like Coventry and, places like London. I mean, the Broncos are doing a fantastic job. Newcastle, if we can get Newcastle developing local kids up there as well. I think the game generally, hopefully, recognise. One or two Super League chairmen might not see it the same way, but I think most people with common sense in the game recognise that the sport needs areas like Coventry and the others that I've mentioned for the future of the game.
And we've seen the season kick off. Obviously, first round of Super League was a hit, I think, on all accounts, with the derbies getting the season going off on the right note. Championship has hit the ground running as well. League One's turn this weekend. again, what sort of stories are you looking for in League One this year? Because it feels like a very open league this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's different this year, isn't it? Because you had Bradford in last year and York and all the noise they were making, and Toronto the year before and all the noise they were making. And this year, like you said, it does feel a bit more open. I think Newcastle have invested quite heavily. I think they're seeing it as a year where they might, really make a push for promotion. But you got the so-called heartland clubs in there as well. Coventry, as you said, good finish. That it does feel that keep your eyes on League One, because anything might happen. And there is a feel-good factor from the Super League, and that hopefully does drizzle down, through the Championship into League One, through the community game as well, the way things have started this season.
And in terms of the draw that you've just presided over tonight, Coventry's game aside, are there any ties that have jumped out at you right away?
Yeah, it's good to see Keighley. I think they've got Dissington, haven't they? It's good to see Keighley back a little bit of health, financial health, after the problems they've had. That the fact that they're actually in the cup draw, I don't think a lot of Keighley fans would have imagined that 2 or 3 months ago. I think the one that I'm speaking out of turn here. I'm just the chap who starts talking when the red light comes on. I don't make any decisions, but I think the powers that be at the BBC might be looking at West Hull against Dewsbury Moor, I think it was, because the ethos of what we do in the early rounds is to tell the story of the community clubs as far as we can, and that looks like being a really good community game, 2 amateur sides going together from the NCL, and I don't think in the last 2-3 seasons we've actually done a match in Hull at this stage of the competition, so that's another reason for going there. But hey, somebody much more important who gets paid a lot more than I do will make that decision, but I think that might be the way we're leaning in terms of the tie of the round for us.
And we've obviously got a couple of years to go until the World Cup comes over to England, and Coventry, a host city, of course. What do you think needs to happen to build a bit of excitement about that tournament in those areas that don't have that traditional backing of the game to fall upon? Because obviously it's been taken to some new stadiums and some new cities, but do you think it's similar to what Super League are trying to do in terms of telling stories about players and showcasing the game? Do you think there's anything particularly pressing that needs to be done over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think one of the healthy things about the whole process is that these towns and cities and stadiums have had to bid for it. It's not like the Rugby League have said, "Oh, Coventry, do you fancy a game?" And the Ricoh Arena go, "Oh, okay." It's actually Coventry Council and the Ricoh Arena and people involved here who've said, "We want to put a game on." The same at Arsenal, the same at Newcastle, the same at Middlesbrough, for example, places where you don't normally see the sport being played. And because of that, because they've invested in the sport, then I think they will make sure it sells locally. I think they will put a lot of effort in, which is good news. I think you'll get a lot of travelling fans. One of the adventures of the World Cup, Bristol last time around, and going down to Bristol, and watching Rugby League there and seeing a fantastic game. I think it was the USA against the Cook Islands, just one of the highlights of the tournament. So you'll get a lot of Rugby League fans who will go to see these matches wherever they're played as well. But yeah, Rugby League as a sport, the RFL as a governing body, the RLWC 2021 as a separate governing body have a lot of investment to do, but I think they're on the right track. I think the way they did the announcement, here we are still 3 years out, but here are the venues, and I think you'll see a lot more of those announcements, which kind of builds the excitement over the next 3 years. And it's sometimes it sounds very patronising to say, "Oh, it's great the women are involved, it's great the wheelchair is involved as well." But they are 2 great sports. The women's sport is not a version of the men's game played by women. It's a separate sport, women's rugby league. And one of the best games I watched last year was the Challenge Cup final between Leeds and Cass, which was just a brilliant occasion and a brilliant game with lots of skills. Different to the men's game, but equal in terms of entertainment. The Wheelchair World Cup, I just love the wheelchair rugby league because it's just the most inclusive sport in the world. Anyone, you and I can play, if we get the skills up in a wheelchair. And I don't know if you know the story about the 2 brothers from Halifax who one had meningitis as a kid, so was confined to a wheelchair. His brother didn't have any problems, and they played wheelchair rugby league together, and it's the only sport they could play together, and they were on the same level. They were competing on the same level, and they went on to play for England together. So you've got stories like that, and it's just a hell of a sport. We think rugby league, men's rugby league is physical, women's rugby league is physical. neither have got anything on wheelchair rugby league, which is rugby league in a wheelchair. It's the same rules, give or take. So I don't know what that question was, but I got carried away with the answer. But I think the fact that there are 3 World Cups together, I think, is genuinely going to be magical.
And just one last question. I'm not going to force you to make a prediction for how the Bears will fare this year, because that's always a tough one. But if any of the Bears players are listening as they get ready to start their season this weekend, some words of advice, some words of encouragement for the Bears as they go into 2019?
Well, I wouldn't dream of giving them any advice, because they'll know a lot more about being on their paddock than I do. Words of encouragement is that, be sure that a lot of people are watching. They might not all be in the Butts Park Arena when you run out on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon, but there will be a lot of people around rugby league watching and really wanting the Bears to do well, because a lot of people believe in what the Bears are doing, not just because it's Coventry Bears, but what they're doing, what Newcastle are doing, what to a lesser extent, but hopefully to a greater extent in years to come, West Wales, London Scores. These are really, really important clubs for the game. So whatever the crowd is when you run out, there's many, many more thousands who'll be, watching your results on social media, watching your scores on social media and in the trade papers and things like that. So tell that story, because there's a very willing audience to listen to that story.
Well, Dave, thank you for joining us on the podcast again. You're always welcome, and hopefully seeing Coventry soon.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Dave. Thank you very much indeed.